first flight in the Mosquito was just out of this world.
In my opinion, it's up there with the Spitfire and the Lancaster. It had a lot of unique qualities, but perhaps its greatest was its versatility.
Enemy coast coming up.
Possessed of an overwhelming desire to fly, Geoffrey de Havilland left the motor industry in 1908 and set about building an aeroplane.
The far-sighted Geoffrey de Havilland began production on his new aircraft during the 1930s, often against Air Ministry doubts. It wasn't until a year into the Second World War that his remarkable multi-role plane overcame its doubters and joined Britain's fight against Germany.
She was as fast as a fighter, in fact faster than any other aircraft in the world.
This is the de Havilland Mosquito, one of the truly iconic aircraft of the Second World War. It was conceived as a replacement, really, for some of the immediately pre-war bombers, but it was on a revolutionary scale, really. It was made of wood, which surprises a lot of people, plywood, because, of course, raw materials were scarce, and here was an airplane that could be made out of plywood. That made it light. Power-to-weight ratio was in favor of power, i.e. speed, and it also had the ability to fly high and fast, and that in many respects was one of its main defensive mechanisms.
The Mosquito was a truly remarkable aircraft. Its wooden structure, a mixture of English ash and Canadian spruce, was produced by cabinet and piano makers, earning it nicknames such as the Timber Terror and the Wooden Wonder. It could climb to an altitude of 35,000 feet and fly at a speed of 439 miles per hour. Quite simply, enemy fighters couldn't reach it, so it dispensed with air gunners. By the end of the war, there were 42 variants of the Mosquito, from photo reconnaissance to night fighter versions. It was the ultimate multi-role aircraft.
Deliveries to the RAF began in July 1941. By December, they had 20 Mosquitoes. By March, 50, comprising reconnaissance, fighter and bomber types.
Well, it carried effectively 4 1,000-pound bombs, or it could carry one 4,000-pound bomb, which was called the Cookie. And the Lancaster would carry a Cookie and maybe 6 or 8,000 pounders. So in terms of bomb load, of course, but it was never designed as a heavy bomber like the Lancaster. So the targets that it would go against would be appropriate. It could carry rockets on the wings, and did extensively, particularly when it was attacking shipping. It had powerful cannons, either in the wing or in some cases in the nose. Certain versions didn't have that glazed bomb aimers panel. It had cannons in the nose, so it was good at ground attack. So it had this great range of armament, from bombs to cannons to rockets to cameras, which is a weapon.
A camera-equipped Mosquito set out, unarmed, photographing enemy harbors from a height of 4.5 miles. With high photographic skill and determined flying, the Royal Air Force developed long-range reconnaissance at plus fighter speed, something which the enemy was never able to achieve.
The Mosquito was affectionately called the Mozzie by its crews, who considered it the greatest Allied plane of the war. Flight Lieutenant George Dunn flew with 608 Squadron over Germany and will always recall his first flight in one.
Well, how does one describe a Mosquito other than almost perfect? Beautiful aircraft, lovely to fly. You felt you were on air.
From May 1943, Mosquitoes undertook nuisance bombing at night.
I did 10 Berlin trips in, I think it was just over a fortnight. We were keeping the Berliners on their toes. Usually about 50 Mosquitoes a night. 2 nights on, one off.
A pilot and his navigator would prove a formidable combination and were essential to the plane's success.
Good luck, sir.
The beauty of two-seat is you become a terrific team. And there are many examples in the Second World War where a pilot and a navigator would team up in their training days and they'd stay together. And they got known as a pair. They sit side by side, and that has quite a lot of advantages, in fact. As a navigator, you can see what the pilot's doing, keep an eye on him. But also the pilot could help with things like map reading because he could see what the navigator had got. In the night fighter version, the radar was in the right-hand side of the cockpit with the navigator sat slightly back. So it was a very cozy environment. It was perfect for teamwork, and that was one of the great strengths of the airplane. There were 7,700 odd Mosquitoes made. It served in every theatre of the war. Initially, it had problems when it first went to Burma because of its wood construction, and the humidity and the heat and that affected the glue and so on. But they resolved that in the end. And in fact, its last ever sortie in the Royal Air Force was out of Singapore in 1955. So for its era, 15 years of operational flying is actually a long time.
Although it entered the war relatively late, it achieved an enviable reputation in a very short period of time. Even the German Reich Marshal Hermann Göring was an admirer. "It makes me furious when I see a Mosquito," he famously declared. "I turn green and yellow with envy."
For its time, it was probably the most versatile aircraft, certainly in the Royal Air Force. It was the forerunner, really, of the multi-role combat aircraft. It did just about everything. And not only did it do them all, it did all of them extremely effectively.